Hello and welcome to the RetroDelirium channel. Today I'm gonna tinker with this Macintosh LC 475. I was lucky enough to arrive at the recycle center where somebody was throwing all of their old Macintosh computers at the recycle center. And so I spoke with the guy and I told him, hey, you're giving that for free? Well, I'm gonna give you 20 bucks so I can go home with all of that. So that's what I did. So now I'm gonna start it up just to see what's inside, what are the specs. And after that, sure, if I have the parts, I'm gonna upgrade it. So let's go right ahead. So about this computer shows that it's running macOS 8.0. I believe that the highest it can go is 8.1 because inside is a Motorola 68000 processor, and those processors were only supported up to 8.1. It has 12 megabits of RAM. We're gonna upgrade that in not too long, and there is an 80 megabit hard drive inside. So that's not really enough to install all the games I want to install and all the applications. So we're gonna upgrade that as well. So now for the hard drive, we're going to replace it with a solid state drive. Well, we could call it a solid state drive. It's using a little micro SD card. So let me show you a little montage of me soldering all the kit together. So that's what the final product looks like. See the little micro SD card here, the 50-pin connector for the SCSI drive. That thing replaces the whole hard drive. What is great about that little device is that you can insert any micro SD card you want. You could have an installation for macOS 9.22 and another one for macOS 8 or 7. It's up to you, and it's not gonna die on you. Now let's also replace this 8 megabits EDO RAM with this 64 megabits EDO RAM. And yes, as you can see, I installed a little heatsink here because the CPU is getting really hot, and I want to disconnect this fan. This fan is really loud. So with this heatsink, I'm pretty sure this is going to be alright. It's going to dissipate the heat well enough. So yeah, I'm going to keep that right there. So now it's booted up from the BlueSCSI adapter with the little micro SD card. And if we open up Lido 7, well, the Mac recognizes the BlueSCSI device as a real SCSI hard drive with 2 partitions on it. On the SD card, I have a hard file that is 1 gigabit in size and another one that is 800 megabits in size. The SD card is a 2 gigabit one, so I could only fit that much data on it. We now have 68 megabits of RAM because there is 4 megabits soldered on the motherboard. So I pre-installed a lot of stuff, a lot of games, a lot of applications. I really try to install the best applications that you can have on this old platform. There is some exclusive games on there for the Macintosh that hasn't been released on any other platform. So let's take a look at all those games and applications. So first of all, in macOS 8.1, there is no dock. So that's why I'm using this neat little application called Drag Thing. You can add tabs in all categories you want. You can name it's really customizable, and you can add anything you want into the dock. You can expand it like that. I could add so many more apps right in this dock. So that's a great alternative for the macOS X docks that we don't have in these older macOS versions. Let's say you don't have any other choices and you have to work with this computer. There's a lot of things that can be done, like Microsoft Word here is really usable. It's really not as fast as any computer you could use today, but with a little patience it could work just fine. Also, Microsoft Excel works just fine on this computer. This is the last version of Adobe Photoshop that you can install on 68K computers. Yeah, using the gradient tool really took a long time to generate this gradient, but let's keep in mind this computer does not come with an FPU. If you want to edit a video on this computer, which is certainly going to be a pain, you can still use Adobe Premiere version 4. Player Pro is a really cool application you can use to make your own music or listen to modules, MIDI files. It's really versatile. So there's a lot of great games that you can still play on this Macintosh computer, but there are some games that it just can't cope with, like Doom. The computer is not fast enough to play Doom. I have it on here because if I put this device into another computer that has a faster CPU, I may be able to play Doom. Wolfenstein 3D is it's playable. You have to lower the screen size, but it's playable. That's one of the only FPS I could play that was playable on here. SimCity 2K. This game is a classic. Even though I could play this game on many other platforms, I'm just happy to have it on my LC 475 and that it runs so well. Same could be said of Lemmings. Again, this game can be found on anything these days. Even though my favorite port is on the SNES, I first played this on the Amiga and quickly became one of my favorite puzzle games. Monkey Island Part 2. I played the first one on an old Tandy computer back in the day. Now I have plans to complete this one on this very Mac. Abuse for the Mac. Now we're getting into games a little bit more obscure and lesser known. This was released for DOS first only as an incomplete shareware. A port was later redone for the Macintosh, and even though the source code was released 2 years later, many developers worked on it since then. To this day, this is the only official port. Pathways into Darkness. This is an exclusive game for the Mac. An ancient god sleeping beneath a pyramid will destroy the world in 5 days. You must bring a nuclear weapon at the bottom level to bury this god under the rubble. This is a really interesting first-person shooter dungeon crawler. Theldro. Not much is known about this role-playing game other than it was programmed by Glenn Andreas of Gandreas Software, who is now making games for Apple iOS devices. Scarabavra is another dungeon crawler with an Egyptian theme surrounding a pyramid. This is only available on old Macintoshes. It reminds me of Shadowgate. Odyssey, The Legend of Nemesis, another classic Mac exclusive. You are stranded on an island with monsters, you must find a mystical staff with powers to save your people. Simple graphics, but a fun game nonetheless. Sensory Overload is an average first-person shooter in which you are a CIA agent investigating a research lab. You find yourself being a test subject after all. Tetris. Not much to say about this Tetris clone other than the 3D perspective is kinda cool. NS Shaft. This is a simple but really addictive game. This feels like a common smartphone game, but released in 1996. It makes me think of a reversed doodle jump game. Power Pete. This game was packaged with Mac OS 7 on new Performa computers. Macworld awarded it Best Arcade Game of 1995. It was repackaged later as Mighty Mike, but the original still is a Macintosh exclusive. Dark Corona. A relatively unknown shooter exclusive to the Mac. It has good demo scene style music composed by Bjorn Lin, aka Dr. Awesome. Spelunks is an exploration game made by Cyan, who made all the Myst games. It was made just before the first Myst games, so the gameplay style is similar, except for the setting, obviously. A cute game to play with your kids. This last one is really funny. All your movements are done on an office chair, and you must avoid all kind of hazards while swinging your way around. Another addictive game only available on an old Mac or through emulation. The video connector on this Macintosh is not a standard VGA connector. It still has the same number of pins, 15 pins, but it's on 2 rows instead of 3 rows like VGA. So to be able to display video on a normal VGA monitor, you will need an adapter. Like this adapter here, it gives you multiple choices of resolutions, but I found a different combination of switches that allows me to use a multi-sync monitor. So I can switch the resolutions in software, like the resolutions appearing on the screen right now. And by the way, don't you think that this is a really strange decision to put the escape key just right next to the spacebar? And look at those arrow keys. It's really not convenient for playing games. Well, that's it for this episode, so thanks for watching. I'll have new videos about Macintoshes, like you can see in the background. I have some others that I plan on doing videos about.